We have an interesting new study which looks at the religiosity of children and their ability to discern fact from fiction. This is incredibly fascinating stuff, and I can't wait for the apoplectic, unhinged responses from the extreme religious individuals that like to email us. Listen to this. Young children who are exposed to religion have a more difficult time differentiating between fact and fiction, according to a new study that's in this month's issue of Cognitive Science. Researchers presented 5 and 6-year-old children from both public and religious private schools with 3 different types of stories: religious stories, fantastical stories, and realistic stories. And the idea was, let's gauge how well different students, depending on their schooling background, how well they're able to identify which narratives contain ideas that are simply impossible based on our understanding of the real world. The study found that of the 66 participants, the children who went to church or were enrolled in a parochial school were significantly less able than the secular kids to identify supernatural elements, such as talking animals, as fictional. That's right. If you are more religious in your upbringing, even as a child, you are less likely to believe, you are less likely to realize that some elements of stories are just made up, like, for example, talking animals. From the study, in both studies, children exposed to religion were less likely to judge the characters in the fantastical stories to be pretend. And in line with this equivocation, they made more appeals to reality and fewer appeals to impossibility than did secular children. There are prior studies that try to argue that children are sometimes born believers and sometimes not, and something about the way they are, about the way their biology is wired, so to speak, determines whether they are predisposed to buy into religious and other faith-based ideas or not. This study, if we are to trust it, and I understand this is only a sample of 66, and we probably need to replicate this with a significantly larger sample, I would completely agree. This would directly dispute that, which would show that actually education and upbringing at a very early age already start to separate what children are willing to believe. Incredibly fascinating stuff.
It is. And, I would say that it's possible that there's a chance that there are some genetic outliers when talking about this. It could be a combination of the two. But of course, if you were raised in a very religious place, a religious upbringing, you are trained from birth to blindly believe things that, that we would find ridiculous.
Doesn't this explain so much about the United States, Lewis? Doesn't this explain why Christians worry so much about their kids watching Harry Potter? They won't be able to realize it's fake.
That's interesting to think about. Maybe, yeah. Or they'll think that it's real, and they'll think that demons are involved, unfortunately.
Send me your thoughts on this. Send me your thoughts on this broadly as a concept. And then if you want to comment on the specific study as well, of course, let me know, because no single study is beyond reproach and is not definitive evidence of fact either.